Welcome, everybody. My name is Steve Kazan, and I'm on the board of the National Society of IT Service Providers, the NSITSP. And it's my pleasure to be able to host these monthly webinars. And I'm here to welcome you and introduce and welcome our panelists. And every month, we have fantastic uh, presentations on various topics that impact the managed service providers, our membership. And our goal is to make the whole industry more professional, both in terms of perception and helping people improve their businesses. And this particular presentation today is right along those lines. If you want to improve your professionalism, one great way to do it is by focusing on the ethics of your business to not only grow your business and show your prospects and your customers that you're serious about being professional, but also to spread that message out across the market to make the whole industry more professional and more ethics focused and ethics based. So with that, let's jump to the next slide. Our presenter today, Karl Palachuk, has been the executive director of the NSITSP and a longtime expert, and he'll talk to you about his background in a minute. But first of all, just the session logistics. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A section so we can keep track of those questions. If you have any comments, right, or chats, the chat is open, and you can put your comments there. Happy to be chatting with you. This is a active session, so we will share resources and links. A lot of them are on the NSITSP website. And if you go to those links, you may find that you need to log in. And the way to log in is to become a member. And the way to become a member is to go to the website and pay some dues for a year. And the value that you will get is so much greater than the pittance for the annual membership dues, which I'm sure are an expense item that can be deducted from your taxes. But we encourage everybody on the call to be members, to participate, to be active. And today we're encouraging you to be active by posting your questions and asking questions. So with that, let's go and we'll thank our sponsors. So vendor partners, we love these guys, these gals. We are always looking for more vendor partners. You know, the Channel Pro guys are very helpful. We try to help them by creating content or answering their questions. But the rest of the folks too, the tech fests, we encourage you guys to go to their shows. There's, I think, one coming up, Channel-Wise and SMB Nation. I know SMB Nation, I think, has a show as well coming up. We have two asks for you. If you happen to know any vendors out there, IT vendors that would benefit from getting their messages in front of managed service providers, we're happy to have that conversation with them. And, you know, if you have any recommendations of vendors we should reach out to, you know, please feel free to let us know that. So thank you to our vendors. Karl, any plug for the vendors?
Just a note that I got the latest Channel Pro magazine, and I think 7 members of the NSITSP are quoted in that, many of them with pictures. So we I don't say we dominate, but we have a good showing in the magazine.
Great. Excellent. All right. With that, without any further ado, I will hand the huge microphone through the internet over to Karl, and Karl will give you a little bit about his background and then dive into how ethics can benefit your business and the rest of your world and your life. So with that, Karl, please take it away.
Thank you, sir. So Steve asked me to throw in a little like tidbit of a little known fact about me. So I would say my little known fact is I was a radio DJ for 10 years. So I'm not sure it has done anything to improve anything in my life, except it was super fun and I'm glad that I did it. So
That is a little known fact. We're going to have to look for old recordings of Karl on the radio.
I am I'm actually the founder of the NSITSP and one of the people who helped create and sort of promote the managed service business model and define it. And I've been in IT consulting since the early 90s and built one of the first managed service businesses. So I started writing books to help people improve their businesses, and everything has just sort of gone from there. So my business exists to help everybody in this industry to be as successful as possible. So with that, here we go. Just a note on AI transparency. I'm going to nuke my video just because it's distracting to me. If I can see how to do that. Here we go.
There we go.
AI transparency. So I do use licensed AI graphics, and some of those are AI generated. So all the graphics here are paid for. I do not use AI tools for generating any kind of content or writing in any way, but I do enjoy playing with AI tools for research, in particular using Gemini from Google. And that's the kind of thing I really think that people should put out there today, because there's so much stuff where, like, is it real? I don't know if it's real or not. So just tell people. So
good idea.
Pardon me?
Good idea.
Thank you, sir. And Steve does a lot of work with AI. And so I'm glad to hear his approval on that approach.
Yeah.
So today's message is basically around ethics. And I think this is absolutely clear. There's never been a better time, a more important time to focus on ethics in your business. You want to do business with people who are ethical, and other people want to do business with people who are ethical. So it's absolutely important that we do this. And I believe that, what we're going to show you today is how to use ethics to differentiate yourself from the competition. There's all kinds of people out there in the world, and some of them actually lead with, behavior that you would not want to model. Sometimes I think, when I meet people, I'm like, wow, I'm really glad that they don't live next door or have any influence on my children, that kind of thing. I think you can differentiate yourself in the market by saying, you know what, we're somebody that you can trust and somebody that you can do business with. I do want to pause for a minute and sort of get your brain headed in the right direction. And so I want to go through this little exercise. So if you've got a second monitor, I don't want you to go do this now, but just think about it. Focus on what we're doing here today. And sometime in the next week, I would like you to go through this. Take a screenshot if you need to. Go through this in the next week. Google your business and what do you find? And I don't care about your ranking. That's not what we're talking about today. But just if I Google your business, what will I see? What comes up? What things are related to your business? Does your business show up at all? If it doesn't, well, okay, that's something to note. If it does, is all the stuff related to your business, everything on that page, what you would like it to be? How do you show up? How does your business show up? And then wander over to LinkedIn and search for yourself, search for your business, and what shows up there? Is your business there? Is your profile there? Does it look professional? Is it what you would like it to be? And finally, go to your website. And I would say start with your about page. If you don't have an about page, note to yourself, create an about page. And then look through it. What's on your about page? What are the pieces there? I've often said your about page is the single most important page on your website, because That's the one that the search engines get all kinds of juicy goodness in. And on your about page, it's completely legitimate to put notes about your clients, who you do business with, tell stories about success that you've had, tell the history of your business, give your personal profile, pictures of your staff, picture of your family, right? That's a juicy source of legitimate SEO, and you control all of it. It's your property, and nobody anywhere is going to rank you down because your about page is all about you. The rest of it should be client focused, but your about page is literally all about you, and you can control that. Then go to your front page, and without scrolling, what the newspapers used to say, above the fold, just go to your web page, and what's there? What do you see? Is there an offer? Is there a promise? Is there something that would attract you, attract clients to you? Does it represent what you want it to? And then spend some time poking around your website. Now, I want to make sure it's clear. Don't blame me for what you find, right? Like, I did not create your presence on the internet. You did that. And so, in the handout that we have, if you go to the NSITSP site and you go to member resources, the handout includes all these slides plus a 6-page workbook, a worksheet. So it includes going through this process. And I would like you to look at it and think about, what are the perceptions that you put out into the world? If I met you at a barbecue and you handed me your business card, I'm going to look you up, right? I'm going to say, okay. And what I'm probably going to do is Google you. And then I'm going to go to your LinkedIn and I'm going to poke around. I'm going to see what your endorsements are and what your affiliations are. Then I'm going to go to your website and I'm going to see if you have an about page. And then I'm going to read your homepage, right? I'm going to go do this. And you can expect in the 21st century that that's exactly what your prospects are going to do. They're not going to say, oh, I wonder if he's got a TikTok, right? I wonder if she's on a Slack channel I can find somewhere. No, they're going to go to the places where they know to look people up and see what they're about. And that should be something that you take some advantage of. Those are all things that you can influence. It's harder to influence Google than everybody else, but your LinkedIn profile, you have 100% control over what's there and what sections are there and what kind of endorsements you have and whatever. So use that. You have complete control over your website, right? So does it represent what you want it to? So that's a way I want to prime your brain. I want you to get thinking about this as we go through the rest of this presentation. And if you have any comments or questions, put them in the Q&A module. Thank you. So we hear this advice all the time, that we should build good relationships with our clients, right? That we do business with people we know, like, and trust. Okay, well, what does that mean? What does it mean in the real world to do business with people you like, do business with people you trust? And where do you find people you trust, right? When you're hiring somebody as a vendor, how do you find vendors you like and vendors you know and vendors you trust? And think about it from the client's perspective, right? How do clients, prospects, find you? How do they know that they're going to like you? And how do they know they're going to trust you, right? And you might spice this up a little and say, well, I want to do business with people who have integrity. I want to do business with people who have honesty. I want to do business with people who have a transparent policy with regard to the way that they're going to handle my data. Well, is any of that on your website? Is any of that in your profile? Is that anywhere in the world, in the internet, pointing to your business? So consider that, and that's what we're going to actually go into today. All right, so first, let's go through a little background. That's my background. So that's a little background.
That's a beautiful shot.
Oh, thank you, sir. I took that in Yosemite this year. So step into my time machine. So in the 1990s and the early 2000s, got into this industry. And when you think about what the world was like back then, the computers used to be these big monstrous things, and as they got smaller and got put into offices and so forth, it was very common that we were an industry filled with secrets. And you hear the term about siloed knowledge. Well, people kept the client's information siloed away from the clients, right? There was little or no documentation of anything at any level, right? People would not give their passwords to their own clients, and consultants thought that they would keep their job by not documenting everything, so it's all in their brain and they're the genius and they're the only ones who know anything, right? And they didn't let the clients have access to their own data. So if you took over a job from somebody like that, there was no documentation. There was nothing written down. You couldn't access the passwords. So you literally had to break into their system in order to get those passwords. And it was also common at the time to sell only what you were comfortable with, right? So back in the day, we had a lot of different operating systems. Today that we don't. But it used to be, oh, you know what? I sell Novell, so you get a Novell operating system, right? Oh, wait, it doesn't go on the internet? Well, we'll figure that out, but you're using Novell, right? And eventually what happened was that people realized that this is going on. And so early on in my career, I would get requests for quote where somebody would say, hey, my current IT person doesn't know the new Microsoft operating system. So they want me to buy 10 new machines, and they want to charge me to uninstall the operating system, sell me 10 copies of the previous operating system and install that, because they say it's the new version isn't stable yet, and Microsoft knows that and they won't do anything about it, which is just absurd, right? But that was common practice at the time because these people were not keeping up on their own education about their own talents and their own industry and what they were supposed to be doing for a living. That was also a period with rampant pirated software. Pirating software used to be absolutely commonplace in this industry. It's better now with systems that are hosted and subscription based and so forth. But it used to be that Microsoft had this one CD way of looking at the world. They would describe China as a one CD nation, right? There were companies that they know as a one CD or a one DVD company. They would buy one copy of Microsoft Office and then share it with the entire office. And when that became more and more difficult, we had a sub-industry grow up cracking license keys. That was considered legitimate business by some people to sell a product that cracked open licenses so that you could pirate software within a client. And of course, some people did it across clients, right? So that was very, very common practice. It was also common practice to sell used equipment, to register everything to your own self, but then deliver it to the client. So then when you got kicked out as the IT consultant, the client didn't own their own computer equipment, even though they paid for it. It's in your name and the warranty's in your name and the internet connection's in your name, right? Ongoing maintenance was rare at the time. And so everything was break fix, right? Break fix 100% guarantees downtime. Why is that? Well, because you start out by saying, we're going to ignore the client until something breaks. Now they have downtime. Now they have trouble. Now they're losing money. And now we're going to go fix it. Managed services is the exact opposite of that, which is we're going to prevent downtime, but you got to pay for it up front. So, you make the same kind of money. You just don't have a client who's always in pain. Common jobs at the time, and I literally started out like almost every job I took was to fix systems that were messed up by an incompetent technician, whether that was somebody in-house or an IT consultant that they had paid. I also made a lot of money documenting systems that had zero documentation. And I remember we would press the documentation onto a CD and tell the client, you put that in long-term storage with your end-of-year backup. That is yours. Don't you give that to anybody except, if you happen to fire us or whatever. give it to the next IT consultant. So that was a regular part of the job. And, you know, we also spent a lot of time getting people legal with regard to licensing. And, you know, for a lot of people, you got 15, 20 licenses and Microsoft Office is $500 a pop. Well, you're going to go into that slowly. And so what we started doing is saying, okay, how can we get you legal? Well, let's get you new equipment. And every time you buy a new computer, you're going to buy a license, a legit modern license that's up to date. And then we're just going to get in the habit of doing that. So we had to build in a system to make people legal. But very commonly, I would get a new client, and the first thing we had to do was to break into their own systems because they didn't have the passwords to the firewall, the router, smart switches, any of the computers, any of the servers, right? And so, you know, I would generally come in after somebody had got a bunch of money with the new install, and I would not get any of that money. I would get the money for putting them on a maintenance agreement and keeping them up to spec. So what happened in a situation like that is the client is having to repay for the same job that they already paid for. They're paying me to document a system that somebody else has already been paid to build and support. So there's that. Now, question mark is, well, is it any better today?
God, I hope so.
Well, it's different today. We don't have some of those problems. We don't have the licensing issues as much as we used to, but we now have the dark web. We have the government looking and finding, oh, we have IT consultants who are extorting their clients, stealing their data and then extorting their clients. We have IT consultants whose employees are stealing data and selling it on the dark web. We have IT consultants who are using illegal practices in the way that they market, the way they go to market, and in signing contracts. The state of Louisiana 3 years ago passed the first law that regulates managed service providers. And they did it because the Secretary of State looked and saw that IT consultants were hired by state agencies to provide services, and they literally did not provide the services that they had signed a contract for. So that brings in legislation, right? Today we have cybersecurity. You are the compliance officer for every one of your clients, whether you want to be or not. Because there's compliance laws, you're the IT person, the client's not going to do it. They don't know how to do it, right? They can't spell PC, let alone figure out how they're going to be compliant with a bunch of laws, some of which were written in Europe, and some have to do with interstate commerce, and some have to have from the Federal Trade Commission, and some are from this government agency and that government agency. Your job is to keep all that straight. And a lot of people are not doing it. And some people are being literally what I would call evil. And that's, whether you like it or not, the market that you are going into when you go to market and try to find clients. So we also have the case, some consultants are literally just abusive. And by that, I mean that they have vague contracts, or they have contracts that say, look, we're just going to do whatever we want and you're out of luck. And we're going to have these huge increases and there's no questions asked. And anytime that we feel like it and we're not making enough money, we're just going to raise our rates, right? They're not good contracts. They're not moral contracts, in my opinion. And some IT consultants still think it's legit to hold clients' data hostage. They say, oh yeah, if you leave us, then you have no backup. Well, that can't be legal, right? If it is, it shouldn't be legal, but it happens a lot in our industry. And, you know, there are still people who sell managed services and provide break fix, by which I mean they get a flat fee at the first of the month, but they don't do anything to actually manage client systems. Instead, they wait until something breaks, client has downtime, client puts in a ticket, and then they go in and fix it. That is not what managed services is supposed to be. And in fact, Federal Trade Commission is going after a lot of MSPs because of this very issue, right? So again, that's the market that you're in. And And on a personal note, a lot of IT consultants treat their employees as disposable tools. We're just going to work them until they drop. If you go to the MSP Reddit and some of the sysadmin and some other Reddits, what you're going to see is a whole lot of people who hate their jobs, hate their bosses, hate being in IT, hate working for an MSP that runs a sweatshop and treats them like garbage, right? Your employees are literally your most important asset. And that's not just a BS marketing term. That is absolutely true. And if your employees hate you, hate their job, hate their customers, hate doing what they do for a living, well, that diminishes the value of your company and it diminishes the value of the services that you provide. And, we also have people who they go to market telling lies. Oh, we're going to do everything, right? The worst one is the people who go to market and say, whatever they're charging you, we'll charge half price. Well, okay. It's sort of like, I will give you a Tesla, but, I'm going to charge half price. Okay. Something's wrong with this picture. Did you pull this out of a flood or something? Like, why is this half price? Nothing is half price for no reason, right? So we have people who are out there going to market, misrepresenting what they can do and what they will do, right? Deep breath. It's all good. So, so I would say we are not one world, right? Steve, did you have a comment?
I was going to say, we know the people in this audience would never do any of that stuff, but there
Right.
are bad actors in the industry that do.
Right. And that's actually the point, right? I'm not saying anybody on this call is doing this stuff, but whether you like it or not, when your prospects meet you for the first time, that's what they've got going through their brain. They see the headline. They don't understand everything except MSP arrested. Like, oh, okay. Right. Is there anything you remember from that slide? It might be the MSP in handcuffs, right? Well, guess what? Guess what your clients are going to remember from that slide. So, as Paul Harvey used to say, we are not one world. We can't say, oh, ethics is ethics. We all believe in ethics, right? We all want to do business with people who are honest and forthright, noble, professional. We all believe in fairness and compassion and competence and giving high value and integrity, right? Well, yes, at some level, you probably agree with 80 or 90% of, the values listed on this page. I have a list of values in the back of the book, Relax, Focus, Succeed, a book that I wrote. But there's also this list. You can go to Brene Brown's site. And if you don't know Brene Brown, go buy absolutely every audio program you can find and listen to it. And you will be amazed and pleased, and it will improve your business. So there's that. So Brene Brown has this Dare to Lead site, and she's got this list of values you can download. You can also just Google list of values, and you'll come up with many, many more values, right? So if you start out with a list of like 120 values, they're not all ones that you have. Like you may think, well, balance in life is important, but it's not as important to me as it is to Karl, right? Having a balanced, workplace. And maybe there's some other stuff where you're like, that's important. Like teamwork's important, but it's not one of my top 5. It's not one of the things that gets me up in the morning and gets me headed in the right direction, right? So in the worksheet that's included in the handouts for members, if you're a member, just go download the handout. Part of what the worksheet does is it walks you through going through a list like this and picking out, identifying the values. First, take that list and narrow it down to like 25 values that are truly important to you. And then set it aside for, a week or so. And then go through it again and narrow it down to maybe 10 or 12 values that are truly important to you, the highest values, the one that when you put one of them against any other value, that one always comes out on top, right? And, then eventually go through it again and come down to maybe somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 values, right? And so print this out, and go through it. Use it as a tool to identify what are your actual values and what will you use as your guiding values for your life and for your business, right? And what you're going to find is this is a long process, but it's not a super difficult process. But, it's just not the case that everybody has the same values. Now, one of your values might be profit, and that's totally legit. I always remind people, the HP way, which is a great example of running a company based on certain values. The number one item, might be number two, but I believe the number one item is that we go to market to make a profit within the following guidelines, right? So it's okay to have profit as a top level value in your business. That's what your business is for, right? Just to throw off a little money so you get to retire in style. Now, I will say we need to be honest, right? A lot of people say, oh, you're bragging or you're, making yourself look good or whatever. No. When you put your ethics first, when you talk about them in public, it's not because you're bragging. It's not because you're arrogant. It's not because you think you're better than anybody else. But think about saying, here's a measure publicly that you can measure me against. And the great analogy for this audience is cybersecurity, right? If you go out and say, we are CMMC2 compliant, we will make you CMMC compliant, we will maintain your system so they are compliant, and that's a measurable standard that you can use to judge our company. And we are going to commit to it. That's what we're going to do. And if we don't do that, you get to fire us, right? So you're putting forward a standard and you're saying, that's how you can measure me. And if I'm successful, you get to be my client for the rest of your life, right? It's a beautiful thing. Well, you can do the same thing with ethics. You can go forward and say, these are our values. This is what we stand for. And you can hold us accountable to this. We're going to be honest. We're going to be, whatever we promise that we're going to be, right? So it's not a matter of being arrogant or showing up as arrogant. It's a matter of saying there are standards and not everybody in this industry follows those standards. So let's take a look at what that means in the so-called real world.
So jump in, one quick question, Karl. Do you think any of these ethics are aspirational? So you set them and you say, we might not get there, but that's where we want to be?
Absolutely, especially if there's some stuff where it's like, I believe in competence, but I can't afford to hire people, 7 engineers at $250,000 a piece. So I'm going to build competence by investing in training people. I'm going to hire people that may not be at the highest level in everything, but I'm going to train one in how to deal with our PSA and one in cybersecurity and one in telephony. And I'm going to make them good at the services we deliver so that if we go to market with those services, we will be good at everything we do. Because, you have aspirational, that's a great question, by the way. You have aspirational goals in your life. There's nothing wrong with having aspirational goals and values in your business.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
This is an example from my site. So if you go to smallbizthoughts.org/about, this is our about page. This is literally a screenshot from our about page. And we put these things out. We believe in honesty and integrity, fairness, good personal relationships, having a healthy life and a long life, and helping others. And those are things that you can look to and say, well, that's what Karl says he does. Do I believe him? Is that my experience when I worked with him? Is that what I'm seeing, right? And so these are not your values. These are mine. So get your own values. But when you go through the process, you may have slightly different values, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, right? Again, you might put profit as one of the top 5, right? You might put training or competence as one of the top 5. It's just your personal stuff, your mix is the way you put together your company, right? So ultimately, people always talk about your unique selling proposition. Your unique selling element is you are a human being and you're different than me and you're different than Steve. You're different from everybody on this call, right? So you be you, as the saying goes, and then say, okay, how do I find clients who want to do business with me being me? I think that's a beautiful thing. I also believe very firmly that this industry is like swimming in a river of money. There are clients for everybody, no matter what kind of services you provide, no matter, how you go to market, no matter your weird personality quirks, right? There are people enough to keep you in business. And all you need to do is go find one more client who wants to do business your way, and then go find one more, and then go find one more, rinse and repeat for the rest of your life. You are your unique personality and your unique selling proposition. So dig into that. But do go through your process. Don't just, you can use somebody else's code of ethics or whatever as a starting place, but you got to find your own. You got to make it your own. So we do have a code of ethics at Small Biz Thoughts, and you can, go to the same page, scroll down, and you'll see our code of ethics, and we list on there, we're honest, and we're going to, when we go to market, we're going to be competent, we're going to be good at what we do, right? We're not going to sell services that we can't deliver, right? That kind of stuff. So when we put that out there, it allows not just our clients and prospects, but also our vendors, and most importantly, our employees, to see that and to hold us accountable. So sometimes, you might say, oh, I'm going to do this marketing campaign, and have somebody say, well, wait. I'm not sure that spamming everybody's phone with a text message really fits with our branding and the way we want to go to market, right? Is that us? Is that who we are? Is that how we show up in the world, right? Signing contracts that we just make a bunch of promises that we don't intend to deliver, but signing the contract anyway. Is that really the way we want to operate? And, again, you go to Reddit, go and see what people are doing inside their managed service businesses. Reddit's sort of a peek under the hood into the seedier side of our industry sometimes. But it's also the only place where people can be honest about the stuff that their bosses are doing, right? When your employees see that you go to market as a moral human being who has certain values and belief systems that you put up front, they have the right to hold you accountable. And it also is going to, in a tough market, we just found out that once again, for the last, 5 years, the labor market is super, super tight, and it's not going to get any looser anytime soon. Well, guess what? That means if you want to separate yourself out from other employers, well, one way to do that, to differentiate yourself when you go to market, is to say, look, if you are an employee here, you got a boss who has values posted on the internet that every client and every employee and every vendor can see. That's the way we do business, and you can hold us accountable to the promises that we have made. If you're not sure where to start, the NSITSP has a model code of ethics on our website, literally under nsitsp.org/code of ethics. Go there, download that. Again, it's not going to be exactly yours, but it's a place to start. And we do believe that these are the things that all professionals in IT services should be doing. We should avoid conflicts of interest. We should be competent at the things we claim to be competent in. Right? We should hold client data confidential, and we should make commitments to our clients. Our clients are not, customers who came into the corner store, bought a candy bar, and left. That's not our business. Our business model is building long-term relationships, and you do that literally by starting with a code of ethics and saying, okay, here's where we are and here's what we do. All right. Any questions or comments before we move on? Cool.
I have 2 questions. I'm going to save them to the end.
Okay, very good. All right, so once you have all of this, then you say, okay, how do we put this into work? How do we lead? How do we do this in the real world? Okay, so we're going to talk about that super quick. Again, the handout is your guide to success. The best news is none of this is a race. You don't have to do this afternoon or next week. Do this one step at a time. Take your time. Do it with intention. You've forever not had this as part of your messaging, so it's not like anybody's in a rush to see it this afternoon. Start by going through that values process. And then when you come up with your code of ethics, post it on your website. I like having the about page in the footer of pretty much every page, and then having the code of ethics on the about page. That's just my formula. You do what makes you happy. But post your code of ethics on your website. And you know what? Post a link on LinkedIn and say, hey, I know a lot of people don't care about values, but today it's super important that we have a code of ethics. Here it is. Go take a look. I welcome your feedback, right? Start a conversation, whether that's with clients or prospects.
I love that idea.
And then add a satisfaction guarantee to your front page. I mean, that literally says we don't have unsatisfied clients. We don't have people who hate us, give us money every month and hate us. So if that's been your experience, come on over. The water's warm, right? I do think you should put your bio and your photograph, your headshot on your about page. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. When you see somebody and that you've got a little bit of their story, oh, I came from big business, or I started out fresh out of college, and I started out helping my grandmother with her computer. Whatever your story is, people love that kind of stuff, and it helps them to see this is a human being going to market. It's not some stranger who came in funded by private equity and is going to give us just a little bit of support and then raise the rates every year 30-40% and then be gone as soon as we run out of money, right? So be a human being and put yourself out there as a person that people would want to get to know, like, and trust, right? Update your homepage, right? And it doesn't have to be your code of ethics on your homepage, but your primary page should make a promise that says something along the lines of integrity. And we're going to talk about that in the next slide. But put a promise statement up there like, we're good, we're competent, we're the ones you've been looking for, right? And then add a link to the code of ethics and a guarantee in your newsletter. Important safety tip. If you don't have a newsletter, today's a great day to start one. Everybody on this call should have a newsletter. And it doesn't have to be long, and it doesn't have to be amazing, and it doesn't have to be spectacular. It just has to be a newsletter. It has to be a way for you to communicate to your clients. And when you go out there and you say, hey, we got a code of ethics, we got a guarantee, we would love your feedback. Again, always ask people for their feedback. It engages them in a conversation. What's a better way to build the ability to think that, oh, I'm building some relationship with somebody I know, like, and trust, right? And then create a longer post on your LinkedIn that says, hey, here's our code of ethics, and just kind of highlight it, and you can pin that on LinkedIn so it's right at the top and people see it, right? And in LinkedIn, you can have articles as well as posts. So, you could even make an article about what it's like to do business with us. Get some great client quotes and post them up there. Also, let clients comment on it, right? If they say, oh, we've been with Steve for 10 years and we absolutely love doing business with him. Great.
Yeah. If you share your LinkedIn post with me, I will comment and I will like, and I will forward.
Excellent. So we go to Steve Kazan on LinkedIn.
There you go.
All right, you got it.
If it's on the subject of ethics, I'm happy to do it.
And after that, then you think about, okay, what's your go-to-market messaging? So you're gonna put out ads, you're gonna put out promotions, or you're just gonna put out your, tune up your web page, your business page on Facebook or LinkedIn. You can start with a promise. You can hold us to a higher standard, right? That's not all preachy and whatever, but it does focus on we hold ourselves to a higher standard, and you can do that too, right? That's a great way to separate yourself from the competition. Or you have a slogan. Maybe your slogan is honesty and integrity first, right? That's a great way to market your business. Also, these days, data security is so important. People are seeing stories every single day. Oh, guess what? Oh, your data got stolen one more time. It's on the dark web. Here's these headlines about these nefarious IT consultants, right? And you can say, look, here's the way we go to market. We protect your data first. Every one of our employees signs a non-disclosure agreement as part of their agreement when they come to work with us. That means they're not going to look at your data. We're only going to, see it to the extent that we have to back it up and provide the services we need to provide. We're not going to download it. We're not going to share it with anybody. We put high value in your data because your data is the single biggest asset in your business, right? And by the same means, when we sign a contract to do business with you, there's a non-disclosure agreement in that contract. We are not going to give anybody access to your data. So we got that, 1-2 punch of protecting the integrity of your data. And at the end of the day, the bottom line is you need to live the ethics that you post. So if you say you're honest, well, clients are going to ask
be
you.
honest.
Yeah, they're gonna ask you to be held accountable for that. I've done business with people who literally tried to rip me off, and I went and looked at their profile on LinkedIn, and they start out with this promise of how honest they are, and I'm like, huh, that's interesting. And then I send them an email. I say, oh, I saw this. There's a misprint on your LinkedIn profile. So the question is this realistic? Can this happen in the real world? Well, it really, really is. There's research to show that companies who have ethical statements, who have a code of ethics and live by them, love to do work with each other. You might almost want to think about trolling LinkedIn for companies that brag about having ethics and leading with value statements and seeing if they need IT support from somebody who's got a code of ethics posted on their website, right? That is not bad prospecting at all because people do like to do business with other companies that they find to be ethical. And, if you go to this site, the mostethicalcompanies.com, world's most ethical companies.com, you'll see a lot of these are companies you do business with, right? And you're going to see there's a lot of companies missing from this list that you think, I do business with a company that would never appear on this list. Maybe you ought to rethink how you go to market with that. All righty. I'm happy to take any questions that you have or that other folks have. And then I've got some homework. So let's get to the questions first.
All right. Questions. So we have our code of ethics, we have our standards, but sometimes people just make mistakes. They screw up. How do you handle a mistake if someone breaks the code of ethics? And how do you bring that message to a client, right, who says you've broken something or who may not know that you've broken something?
I would say, think about the big lessons from big mistakes that have been made. The cover-up is always worse than the crime.
There you go. Watergate reference.
Right. And it's much better to think about remember the origin of the whole issue with the sealed bottle caps and all that, the Tylenol incident. Johnson & Johnson is famous for just having said, man, did we screw up? Like we took all this off the market. We're going to bring it back. We're going to retool everything. Bad stuff happened. Right. And actually just say this happened and be honest. Right. The thing is, if something bad happens, if one of your employees is a crook or sells stuff on the dark web or whatever, I'm sure with whatever we have, 70 some people on the call, there's guaranteed to be at least one or maybe 5 people who've had employees rip them off or rip off their clients. And there's not much you can do except be honest. Go to the clients and say, this happened. And, we've put, some measures in place to make sure it doesn't happen again. And, what can I do? Like literally fall on your sword and say, what can I do? and have that human conversation. This is the same thing that, happens when, you catch your kid doing something they shouldn't. Well, you don't just stop the relationship. You have a conversation and you say, okay, how shall we move forward in an honest relationship in which, this happened and now we need to make sure it doesn't happen again. Right?
Great. Okay. Next question. So I've worked at large companies in the past, and when you start, they hand you a sheet of paper and they say, here are our 5 key values. And at the bottom, there's a signature line. So my question is that a good practice? Does it work? Is it helpful? And so what's your view on that?
I would say that the ongoing behavior is more important than a piece of paper. I think it's fine to do that, but you know what? I don't think it means anything unless you're sitting in a room and behind the boss's desk is a list of those values for everyone in the company to see.
Well, that was my next question. So in the lunchroom, up on the wall, is there a framed picture of the 5 core values?
Right. Absolutely. One of the people on the call today, one of our first board members was Larry Mandelberg, and in his book, he points out the extraordinarily strong ethics statement that you will find at Enron, right? So,
Yeah.
there's the written word, but then there's the reality of the situation, right? So you have to practice what you preach, but that's in some ways that's the point, right? Put it up there and say, hold me accountable. Virtually everybody I've ever coached with, this is honest to goodness true, without very few exceptions, everybody that I've coached with, I go through this process of onboarding them and I ask lots of questions. One of the questions is, do you have a mission, vision, and values, document? Do you have those statements? And if so, send them to me. And almost invariably, the answer is, yeah, we have that somewhere. I think Steve's got a copy in his desk, right?
Right.
They don't know what their values are, right? At the very beginning of this slide deck, the quote was from Tony Hsieh. And Tony Hsieh started Zappos. And they have a list of values, and you can look Zappos values. You can go Google that. And every one of their employees knows every one of those values. And, including my favorite one, which is be a little weird. Right? They all know that there's certain things where they go to market to put the customer first, and this is how we do that. And if your employees don't know your values, well, it doesn't matter whether you signed a piece of paper on the first day or not, right? I've worked with companies that have value statements, and in fact, most of us are in this position. I left a company like that because I was so disgusted that I thought, I'm going to go on my own and start my own business. It's better work than working for these people.
Yeah. So part of the reason for the sheet of paper is just to make sure that they know it and they've read it, not that they're going to change their behavior. I think when you have a job interview, it would be interesting to ask the candidate, what are your personal values? Give me 5 words, right, for your personal values, and just sort of see what their response is and see if there's alignment between their personal values and your business values. If you're the owner, manager of your company, maybe that's the place to start, is come up with 5 of your personal values and then see how those personal values, right, would extend out to your employees and your company and your customers.
Right. Well, I will say, along those lines, one of my favorite things that ever happens is when a prospect comes in for an interview, employee prospect, and they make a point of saying, well, I was looking through your website and, and they ask me questions about the website. Well, if your code of ethics is on your website, that very excellent candidate may have read them and may have questions about it, but at a minimum, they have looked through your website, and instead of finding, vague promises about cybersecurity and, you know, value in the market, they found something they could latch onto and say, well, you know,
Yeah.
you make me uncomfortable with all this talk about honesty and integrity.
We're worried about that honesty thing.
Yeah,
They're a
or I like
salesperson.
it, you know.
They're a salesperson and they come in and they see all that honesty stuff.
Right.
Karl, we've used the hour
Oh,
completely.
well, let me give homework super quick.
Okay.
So, believe it or not, there's homework. So, and you can take a screenshot. So if you're not a member and you don't want to pay $150, which you should because you just should, take a screenshot. This is your homework. Review and evaluate your public presence, as we talked about. Explore and document your personal guiding principles and values, and then write them down. Figure out how that applies within your company. Define these into your code of ethics, and then, you know, implement some way, as we were just discussing, to talk about it internally with employees and just literally live it in your company, and then update your public presence with your website and LinkedIn and so forth. You know, think about what will Google say about you? What will LinkedIn say about you? What will your website look like? And then if you're not a member, grab that QR code, join us today.
Get out
Literally
your
150
phones,
bucks
take a
a
picture
year.
of it. Join today.
Yeah. And by the way, go to the events tab for upcoming webinars, our quarterly all member meeting, and everything else that's going on. The recording will be at the nsitsp.org member resources page, and I believe also on YouTube. Sponsor memo, I own Small Biz Thoughts Technology Community, and I would love to have you check that out at smallbizthoughts.org. And that's that. And then also, if you download the slides, it has all the links and everything I've mentioned here. It's all right there.
Perfect. Thank you, Karl, for all the preparation that went into this, the hours and hours of your experience that are coming through on the messaging and the slides here. Really appreciated, really valuable. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you, and thanks for having me.
All right. Well, with that, we're going to sign off. We'll see you next month for the all hands meeting. Hopefully everybody can come, bring your questions and your opinions with you. Love to have those. And then beyond that, we have some topics around cybersecurity, which a lot of MSPs generate a lot of revenue from. So that's going to be coming up in December and January. So look for those as well. Find us on LinkedIn, follow us on LinkedIn, comment frequently on everything that gets posted, and go out there and have an ethical and successful week, month, year, and career as a member. Thank you all. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.